Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Through the Whistle Sports. My name is Campbell, and I am here with my partner Joseph. And so today we are going to be talking about some more NBA news. Just brief overview. We're going to talk about the rookie team first, recap the Western Conference final game, then talk about Deandre Ayton, and then go into a few things with the Bulls, and then talk about the recent Patrick Beverly and Danny Green comments. So we're gonna start off with the rookie team. Joseph, if you want to start saying what you like and don't like about that team.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty accurate. Like as far as the 10 players, I think it's accurate.
Yes.
I think the three unanimous votes are also accurate for first team, which are Cade, Scotty, and Mobley. Those
Yep.
three had by far the best season. Franz Wagner had a solid year, but I believe that those three are like first team locks. If you didn't have them there, what are you on?
Yeah.
But I believe there are seven players who deserved to be on first team this year, and in any other season would be on first team. And that is Josh Giddey, Herb Jones,
Yes.
Franz Wagner,
Yes.
Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Cade, and Scotty. Those players are like if you put them in any other draft class, I think every single one of them has potential to win Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
This draft class was so phenomenal that there's two players who I could see being future Defensive Player of the Years. There are two players who I could see being future scoring leaders. There are two players who I could see being future assist leaders. Like this draft class is just so stacked. And I think the NBA should have expanded the first team to include seven people.
Yeah.
I think they should have looked at this class and been like, man, Herb Jones deserves to be on first team. Josh Giddey,
Yes.
man, set so many records. So many records.
Yeah.
And Herb Jones was like the best defensive rookie we've seen in the last 10, 15 years since like Tim Duncan. Herb Jones and Evan Mobley were the two best defensive rookies we've seen since then. And you can make the argument that Evan Mobley was helped out a lot by the emergence of Jared Allen and getting to play the free safety role. But even if you make that argument, statistically, he was still like a top tier rookie. You can say he wasn't as good as Tim Duncan, sure, but he was still a top tier rookie. And Herb Jones, on his own, we watched him clamp Devin Booker for like 4 games in the regular season. We watched him clamp Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell literally said he was the hardest defender he has ever had to go against.
Yep.
That is not made up. I think they got the 10 people right, but I think they should have given Herb and Josh Giddey honorary first team because of how deep this rookie class was.
Yes. And I just have I like the first team all rookie, except for one player who should probably on be on second team, who by no means had a terrible year, but Jalen Green.
Yeah.
I think people are having recency bias with him, and the fact that Josh Giddey was not. They were both, the Rockets were worse, but they were in the headlines much more than the Thunder were, and I think that Josh Giddey should have definitely been first team All Rookie over Jalen Green. That's not to slight Jalen Green the slightest. He had a phenomenal final month of the season, but I don't think that what Josh Giddey did during the year is worse than what Jalen Green did. I think that Josh Giddey should definitely be on first team, or at
I,
least an
s-
honorable mention.
I saw this quote or this comment. I think it was a quote from a reporter as well, and it said, "It's not about how you start the season, it's about how you finish." Josh Giddey did not finish.
He couldn't.
That is the most frustrating argument because everybody and their mother knows what the Thunder were doing in the last month of the season. Everybody knows they were purposely tanking because they wanted that top pick. And look, they got the second overall pick. It all worked out. But taking that first team all rookie reward away from Josh Giddey is dumb because
Yeah.
Jalen Green just balled out in the last month. You know how many players have had fluke last months of the season? There are
So many.
so many, so many. We saw Jalen Green for the first 2 months of the year was the worst player in the NBA.
Yeah. And
He
yeah.
was not scoring, and when Jalen Green is not scoring, he is unplayable. He cannot play make, he cannot play defense, and those things can improve over time, which is why he deserves to be on the second team because he finished the
Yep.
season so well, and that is second team worthy. But there, you put Josh Giddey on the second team with likes of like Son Ilyasova and Aaron Baines and like those people, it's like, okay, we're getting disrespectful here. The guy is the youngest player ever to get a triple double. He's like the first, he's like young, he's up there with like Magic, Jordan, and LeBron in like stat categories for points, rebounds, and assists. And obviously, I'm not comparing him to them, but I'm saying that when you look at statistics, which is what his story rookie of the year has been about, it is disrespectful to sit there and say he deserves to be on second team over, oh, this guy has hops and he can score the ball.
Yeah, and I think there's one other player. Um, Hold on one second. So
Are
I
you saying
think
someone they missed?
I think that they missed one person, and maybe he would be like if they had a third team, he would absolutely be on there. But he could have been on the second team, and I think that's Austin Reeves, as an undrafted rookie. I think he was a rookie this year, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yes.
So he was just the second undrafted rookie in NBA history to drop a triple double, and he was the first time in NBA history that an undrafted rookie dropped a 30-point triple double. And yes, you can say that the LeBron and AD were injured, the season was over, and so they let him get the ball. But I think that even throughout everything that happened, as much as they struggled, um, I definitely think that he should be on there, and that's not to discredit, because I do think that Bones Highland should be on there. I think that Chris Duarte should be on there. I think Ao Dosmu should be on there, and then Josh Giddey and Herb Jones are obviously supposed to be on there. But I think you've got to put Austin Reeves here somewhere, and that may just be recency bias, but I think you've got to put him even as like an honorable second team mention.
Yeah, the thing is, I just don't think I don't think I would take Austin Reeves over anybody on this list.
I
Like
wouldn't either.
with the argue, like just giving him praise is good, but I don't think he deserves to be on second team. Bones Highland was very good. Like he, from almost out the gate, his team said, "Oh, he has the best handle on this entire roster." As a rookie, as a 21-year-old rookie, he has the most like pure shot of anyone on the roster. These are all things that were said by their teammates.
He
And
normally
maybe they're
beat the
just hyping
70,
him up.
yeah. And he normally beat the 76ers, or not normally, but he almost beat the 76ers just by himself.
Joe, I believe it was the game where everyone was like, "Oh, this is the MVP race. This
Yeah,
is getting decided tonight." And Joel and wow, I'm blanking on
Jokic.
the MVP's name. Joel and Jokic both had absolute stinkers of
Yeah.
games.
Yet all
They,
Jokic
they had
had,
terrible games.
yeah,
They both had terrible games, and it was clear that it didn't really decide anything because
no.
both of them sucked. Um, he do like the idea of Austin Reeves as a player, though. I think he can be very good. But Bones Highland, very high potential, especially on
Yes.
a Nuggets team that really develops players well. Like there are other franchises you look around the league, the Suns in particular, Dragon Bender, Marquise Chris, Josh Jackson, and now DeAndre Ayton, all players who were just absolutely drafted in like top 8 picks and just were terrible.
Yeah.
They were bad. And Ayton, I think, might be one of the most overrated players in the league because this guy is about to get a max contract.
Yep.
He says he wasn't utilized right. You know what else he says? He says, I sometimes stay up until 4 a.m., then get up for practice at 5 a.m. because I have family and friends all around the world who I only get to catch up with at that point in time. You know who that sounds like? It sounds like my friends, like high schoolers, who are not in the NBA, who do not
Yeah.
have a job where they're trying to make $35 million a year. That's not the type of player you give that to. Those are serious work ethic questions that now are going to be brought up in interviews. And you brought this upon yourself. If you do not get more than 30 million this offseason, it's on you. And we brought this up like 2 days ago when we were talking about Harden. We need to stop paying off name and draft pick
Yep.
because you know what? Jalen Brunson was better than DeAndre Ayton this postseason.
Absolutely.
Who's going to get more money this offseason? Jalen Brunson or DeAndre Ayton?
It's gonna be Ayton because
Who's going to get more money this offseason? Tyler Hero or DeAndre Ayton?
it's gonna be Ayton.
Who played better?
Hero and
Exactly.
Brunson.
But both of them played better than Hero, or both of them played better than Ayton, and yet they're both going to get paid more
Yep.
because guess who was the number one pick?
It
Guess who
was
was compared to the the general or the admiral coming out of college? He has not lived up to being the number one pick. He was drafted over Luca, Trey. I'm taking like 8 players from that draft class over him, and I am not joking. I am taking Mikal Bridges over him. I am taking like Miles Bridges. I'm taking over him. I'm taking Shea over him. I think that if he goes to a new team, he will most likely ball out and prove me wrong because that is just what happens when young players who had like issues with the front office go to new teams. And we all forget about the racism that happened in that front office, like proven
yeah.
racism in that Suns front office. That was a real storyline. I think that doesn't affect his decision this free agency.
No.
It feels as if he wasn't used right. You want to know why he probably feels that way? Because his owner was caught red-handed being a racist dirtbag. He knows what's going on in that organization. Now, teams that would pay him, there are a lot. It's like any team that is in the top 8 has a little bit of cash is going to pay Ayton because you know what? The Suns are going to want to sign and trade. And you know what that means? That means teams can dump money. That means if the Kings really want him, they can dump the 20 million Harrison Barnes is making. That means if the Magic decide they don't want to go Chet first overall, they can take him.
Yeah.
That means the Pistons might be able to trade Jeremy Grant, then send Kelly Olynyk plus whatever role player they get over. There are a lot of teams who want DeAndre Ayton's services. I question, I really do, if he's ever going to be able to live up to any kind of lottery pick hype, even. That
Yeah.
draft class, that is a stacked draft class.
Yeah, and I just want to go real quick to the box score of the Game 7, where DeAndre Ayton played 17 minutes and got benched. He played 17 minutes, and he got 5 points in a Game 7. He was first
And then they said
overall.
it was an internal decision, which
Yeah,
means, you know what? He chose the money over potentially the team winning.
yeah. And he went
More
2
questions.
for 5 in field goals. He had a negative 23 player rating, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 1 steal, and 3 personal fouls. That not only as just the number one pick, but even if you aren't a number one pick, that is horrible in a game 7 as a starter. And yes, there were players. He was the best player rating of all the starters, but as the number one pick, and he had to get benched because of that. That's
And you know what I think? I think he relies on Chris Paul and Devin Booker to be good for
yes.
him to generate him points. What is something Ayton is good at? What is something he's above average at?
I
Rolling to the basket.
yeah,
And that is like the only thing. And what do you need to be good at rolling to the basket?
yeah,
Somebody to get you the ball. He goes to a team that does not have somebody playmaking point guard. I think he is going to really struggle. Now, the good thing is all those teams we just mentioned have good point guards.
yeah,
Tyrese Halliburton, Cade Cunningham, Damian Lillard, De'Aaron Fox. But I don't think you should pay him the max regardless. I think you
no,
should make the Suns pay him the max because that's going to send them into cap HE double hockey sticks for the next 4 years. We just talked about this the other day. They have Chris Paul on a 4-year, $120 million
yeah,
contract. They have
and
to
people,
pay Cam Johnson soon. They're screwed. Now I want to ask you, Luka or Ayton?
Luca, for sure.
Luka or Jaren Jackson Jr.?
Luca or Jaren Jackson, Luca.
Or sorry, DeAndre Ayton or Jaren Jackson Jr.?
Oh, that's Jaren Jackson.
So despite Jaren Jackson's fouling problems, I would still take him over
Yeah,
Ayton simply because at least when Jaren Jackson is on the court, he is good. Even when Ayton was on the court in this game 7, he was like, eh. Ayton or Trey?
Ayton or Trey, Trey.
Ayton or Wendell Carter?
I I think Wendell Carter there.
It's close. It
Yeah.
really is. And I think I'm taking Wendell Carter, but it's really close. Ayton or Mikal Bridges?
Oh, that's Bridges easily.
Ayton, Shea?
I really like Shea.
Me
Yeah, I'm
too.
taking him.
Ayton or Miles Bridges?
Miles Bridges. I think that Miles Bridges is better.
Ayton or Anthony Simons?
Anthony Simons has, I think, more potential even on the Blazers.
Ayton or Robert Williams?
Oh, that's Robert Williams.
Ayton or Jalen Brunson? We both said Jalen Brunson.
Yeah,
Ayton or Mitchell Robinson? I'm taking Ayton here.
yeah. I think that's where
Ayton.
it stops in the draft. At that point. But
So if we go back over Ayton or Bruce Brown, I'm still taking Ayton. So that is 1, 2, 3. Oh, Ayton or Michael Porter Jr. I'm still taking Ayton.
yeah,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people who you would take over Ayton from that singular draft class.
yeah, and
And I get it's a good draft class, but we're really going to give the 11th best player a single draft class a max contract.
yeah, and especially with him getting benched, that doesn't look good for
Oh,
teams either.
you know what he says? Oh, internal decision. You know what that means?
Yeah, he,
Look, dude, I can't lose my payday. I
yeah,
can't do that. You can't make me play, man. If I lose my payday, I'm going to lose my livelihood. I think he's made like 30, 40, 30, 36 mil so far in his career, right about there.
his salary is 9.6 or
So
9.56 million.
so right about 36 mil in his career.
Yeah,
He's money hungry. And I would be too. Go get your bag, Ayton, because you played super well at Arizona. You got picked over Luka. Like that's how well you played. But it just sucks because he's a guy who has all the talent in the world, I believe. I just don't think he's developing any of it. I don't think he's turning that talent
No,
into anything.
I think I feel like he's gonna have great talent, but if he's staying up till 4 a.m. to
Go to practice at
talk,
5. Like,
yeah,
what are you? You're not in college anymore, dude. You
yeah,
have a job.
like this
Like,
is a job and this is a business, and I don't,
people have invested a lot of money in you, and you're
yeah,
just not trying. That's what it seems like to me.
yeah, and you know, on while we're on the topic of max contracts, I think we may as well move over to the Bulls.
Yeah.
And before we talk about Zach LaVine and whether or not he should get the max, we should absolutely talk about Lonzo Ball because this is very concerning for Chicago as well as Lonzo himself and teams that may be wanting to trade for him.
If they have one good year, then they're back to being bottom feeders because Alonzo Ball has a career-ending injury. Levine leaves, and DeRozan continues to regress, as I think he probably will. I mean, he's 32, 33 at this point.
Yeah.
We've seen time and time again that players, LeBron has slowed down, CP3 has slowed down. If Rosen slows down and Lonzo's not playing, Levine isn't playing, the team is done.
Yeah.
Um, Lonzo Ball, as a Pelicans fan, I rooted against Lonzo when he left. Because how can you not? The guy, like, clearly never wanted to be here. And I do feel like he never gave the city a chance. Like, as a fan, I take that personally because I think the city is, like, an incredible city. The culture of New Orleans it's a real thing. And I don't think he ever embraced it. I think he always wanted to be in those cities like New York,
Yeah.
LA, Chicago, Miami. I don't think he gave us a chance because he knew that if he would get a lot of money based solely off the Ball brand.
Yeah.
He got 20 million. So now the Bulls are stuck paying Lonzo 20 million. And you know what? If he doesn't, if this ACL, what is it?
It's a bone bruise
It's
that
like a yeah.
after surgery.
Which do you know who also has this injury? Zion, but it's in his foot.
Yeah, it's Zion.
So how long is we said Zion would be back for this start of this season? So with that, we're projecting Lonzo to miss all of next year.
Yeah.
If I'm Levine, I am not wasting a year of my career on a team that just missed the playoffs, just made the playoffs and got a singular, and get a singular did not
They
get a
won
singular.
one game. It was tied.
They won less than the Pelicans,
Yeah.
who were a 9 seed.
Yep.
You watched Vucevic fall off as the season went on. I'm Levine. I'm looking at Magic, looking at the Pistons, and I'm looking to be a leader on those teams as opposed to stay in a city that is like crumbling with injury and age. Levine is the only reason that team was in the playoffs. Without Levine, I guarantee you they make the play-in game as like the 10 seed and then lose to the Cavs. Levine is that guy. Landing spot wise, there's not a lot because not a lot of teams have enough money for that max spot other than like 10 seeds,
Yeah.
like bottom 10 seeds. So I would love to see Levine in like a Magic jersey, a Pistons jersey, not a Kings jersey. Though I don't know if you know this, Levine tried to sign with the Kings.
No.
His free agency 4 years ago,
Yeah.
the Kings offered him 4 years, 19.5 million flat. accepted that. The Bulls matched it. So I doubt he's going to try and do that again, right? I don't. I mean, if the other thing is that it's seeming more and more likely Westbrook stays in LA, but let's say they move off Westbrook for like nothing. LaVine to LA is a possibility.
Yeah. I think
Don't
that another possibility is I don't I personally don't see this happening, and I just can't picture it in my mind. But people really want to have this happen. So the Bulls general manager just came out and said that he's going to be interested in Matisse Thybulle. He's a small forward on the 76ers, really great defensive player, can fly
can't
around the
shoot.
court, can't shoot for anything. He'll have one good game in the entire season, but the GM loves his defense, and so people are considering Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle, throw in a later first round pick, um, maybe possibly lottery protected by the 76ers, no, though maybe not, for Zach LaVine and maybe
I don't
somebody
like
else.
it.
Yeah,
Don't like it
I don't
because I think
either.
you need role players, and I think I went on this whole spiel last time about the Tobias Harris, Paul Reed, Matisse Thybulle for the Jazz role players.
Yeah,
Um, if you just have that much, like, just too much for me. It's like, okay, where is the defense coming from? Where is this
yep,
perimeter shooting coming from? And I think LaVine, think he wants to play on a team that doesn't have injury-prone players. And I hate to say that about Embiid because we saw what happened, but we saw how injuries just pretty much screwed him over in the
yeah.
last place he was at. If Lonzo Ball is out all next year, do you think LaVine comes back? LeVar Ball said LaVine is gone. LeVar said he's going to a big market. He said he's going to LA. They
Well,
said he's gone. We know LeVar talks out of his you know what, but I think he doesn't have a little bit of insight.
he might have a little, and he likes to spin it because he's LeVar Ball. Um, but I think that there's some validity in some things that he says and what he knows. Um,
But the defender I'm going after if I'm the Bulls is Rudy Gobert.
I think that would be much smarter than
And even if Lonzo then misses the whole year, you still have perimeter defenders. You have Alex Caruso.
yeah,
That's more perimeter defense than Gobert has ever had. And everyone's always going to say, well, we know the problems with Rudy Gobert already. Why are we still trying to invest in him? Because we don't necessarily know the problems with Rudy. We know that he's never had good perimeter defenders on his team. And we know that he's never been given a real opportunity to show how good he is when he can stay in the paint 24/7
yeah,
instead of being forced to switch onto the perimeter because his team is so bad. And I'm not really the biggest Rudy Gobert defender because I think Rudy has his flaws. But people who act like he's the worst player in the league
yeah.
either
That's
one are against him because of the whole mic touching situation that happened a few years ago, or they're like, how is this guy the highest paid center of all time? Like Shaq always says.
yeah. I think that a Rudy Gobert trade to the Bulls, um, I think it'd help out the Jazz depending on what package they put together, and I think it'd help out the Bulls. With Vucevic not playing well. Um,
Vucevic would be gone, which is
yes,
like the whole reason DeMar came there. But I think at this point, you could probably convince DeMar, hey, we want to get a ring.
yeah,
Can you please let your friend go? And that gives the Jazz really good building block because it
yeah,
would be like either Patrick Williams or Kobe White, most likely both of them,
yeah,
which is like a good way to start your rebuild. Not to mention if you then trade Donovan Mitchell to like the Jazz for Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks for like Obi Toppin, Emmanuel quickly, a few picks, and then you do that role player deal where you get Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle, Paul Reed. You're looking at like a Paul Reed, Obi Toppin, Patrick Williams, Emmanuel Quick. That is like a really all of a sudden kind of fun team.
Yeah.
Like you have future draft picks, you still own all your current picks. So you tank next year, you get a good player, and then all of a sudden you're right back in the playoffs. The Pacers are a sleeper team to make the playoffs next year. I don't know why, because I guarantee you there are a few teams in the East that are aging out and might need to take a step back next year.
Yeah.
And if the Jazz are going to be the same way in 2 to 3 years' time.
Yeah, and I think that the more likely scenario is Rudy Gobert going to the Bulls rather than Zach LaVine going to the 76ers, because I don't think that it would work. I don't think it'd work for the 76ers, and I don't think that you're getting as much as you could
I think people know
from
that
the
they need.
76ers.
I think people are starting to learn that you need real role players, not just star power. And if they have
Yep.
a lineup of Matisse, or not Matisse, Joel, Zach LaVine, Tyrese Maxey, and Harden, oh my God,
Yeah.
I do not want to watch that. That is like, I just know there are going to be issues with who handles the ball. Um,
Yeah, and people are just wrong when they say that you only need star power, and they're trying to say look at the Eastern and Western Conference Finals as proof, but the Western Conference Finals, they aren't deep, but they're also the Golden State Warriors, and the
I think it's a lot about the amount of shot creators you have.
yeah.
Um,
But then you take a look at the Miami Heat. Their bench is so deep. I don't care if they're talking about, oh, Jimmy Butler
it's
has
also like
41
Heat
points.
culture, which everyone says is like a
Yes.
myth. Some people say it's a myth sometimes, but like
No.
way Jimmy Butler was able to step up this playoffs. I think he's had 5 40-point games, and we
Yes.
are like we're he is not.
And he hasn't
He
made a
didn't have
single
any
three.
in the regular season. He can't shoot to save
Yeah.
his life. Um, but it be should be interesting to see what these teams who are kind of in purgatory right now do this offseason. The Bulls, the Jazz, the Nets, the Lakers, all these teams, the Knicks, all these teams who are right there at like the 10 spot who aren't young roster wise. Um, but a player who I have no interest in talking about anymore. Um, but we kind of have to. Patrick Beverly.
Yep.
I'm so sick of this man. I used to love Patrick Beverly. The Clippers team with Patrick Beverly, Lou Williams, Shea, Montrezl Harrell, that team when they took the Warriors to 6, that was some of the most exciting basketball of my life.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the first moments where I'm like, I love basketball. And he's like ruining that for me because he goes on ESPN, and you know what I think it is? I think the players feel betrayed by him going on ESPN. I don't think the players like media at all. And I think
Yeah.
Patrick Beverly, the constant antic guy, going on there and giving them content, talking about personal conversations that he has
Yeah.
had with Paul
That's
George, like I understand why they're so frustrated with him. And Danny Green, a role player who has been incredible for years, I guarantee you he's sick of Patrick Beverly doing this. Because guess what? If Danny Green did this like 6 or 7 years ago, he would have been out of the league
yeah.
because he hasn't built up this reputation of this guy who's allowed to talk smack. Patrick Beverly, as much as he frustrates me, he's done a good job of building up the reputation that allows him to talk smack.
Yeah. And I think as much as he's talking like said all this smack, I also do want to say I don't want anybody trolling him for absolutely celebrating after they got into the playoffs. Because if you
Yeah.
just take a look at what the Timberwolves were through what they went through, and Jimmy Butler, whether that was Jimmy Butler's fault or the Timberwolves' fault, they were they should have been nowhere close to the playoffs this year. And they took what, one game, maybe? They should have taken multiple from the Grizzlies, but I think they took one game in that series.
I don't remember. That series is long gone in my head.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's right to troll them. I think
Yeah.
that they made the playoffs. They're allowed to celebrate. I get it's funny, where it's like you look on No Context NBA's comments, and it's like any Patrick Beverly post, it's like NBA Finals MVP Patrick Beverly. Oh, this
Yeah.
is why we play. Those make me laugh. But when people are sending death threats, it's like, okay, calm down.
It's like
Calm down.
and they've had such a terrible year. Even last year, they weren't even supposed to. They were supposed to be in the lottery, and
Yeah, they were not supposed to be this high.
Yeah, and they made the 7th seed, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, congrats to them, and congrats to Patrick Beverly.
But I
and
don't
all
think
the
players
Timberwolves
respect Pat Bev
players.
anymore. I don't think
No.
players respect Pat Bev anymore. And this quote in specific makes me think that a lot. People target you too, Pat Bev. You ain't playing no effing defense out there. You ain't stopping Luca. Time and time again, I've seen Luca call all your butt little man. Say he's too effing small and can't go right at you can go right at you every chance he's got. What he's saying is that nobody respects Pat Bev either. And you know what that makes me think? I think there are like I don't think people respect defense at all.
No.
The constant Rudy Gobert slander, NBA players don't respect defenders at all.
Yeah.
Shaq calling Rudy like names on live TV and no NBA players standing up for Rudy. Mike Conley getting an all-star vote and people saying we don't play with the Jazz on 2K. People don't respect defense. Mike Conley made that because he was a good playmaker, a good shot maker, and he played good defense on the #1 defensive team.
Yeah.
People don't respect defense in the NBA. Matisse Thybulle, I guarantee you, gets clowned.
And
He gets clowned on Twitter. Fans don't respect defense. Refs don't respect defense because they're still calling the pull-through foul.
Yeah.
Why? Two-way players are my favorite players in the NBA. Mikal Bridges, one of my favorite players in the NBA. Like, it's all the guys who are able to hit the three, shot create, and play defense. Those are the best players in the league. Kawhi Leonard.
Yes.
His prime was unbelievable. Top 20 prime of all time. And you know what? He got injured, and now people just forget he exists because people don't respect defense. Imagine you know all the Harden highlights that constantly get posted all over Instagram, all over Twitter, and it's like missing this Harden.
It doesn't.
Where are the posts for Kawhi saying on Kawhi's defensive highlights saying missing this Kawhi? They don't exist.
It just, defense doesn't get as many clicks as offense, and that's
It should.
In the time.
Fans don't respect defense. That's my point.
In the times of social media as well, it's so like fast paced, so they'd rather see like a huge like half court shot or a very deep three rather than like someone driving to the basket and then getting locked and having to push it out and then getting the ball back to them and they get locked up again. That's just, I think in terms of social media, it takes too long for defense to
like the pickpocket.
Yeah.
There's so many instances of Kawhi just picking someone's pocket, going down to the other end for a dunk. Why doesn't I understand that Harden or like crossing over, what's his name, Wesley Johnson on the Clippers, I believe it was, in that one highlight where he did the double step back and he literally fell over like this. I get that's more enjoyable. I just don't think people respect defense enough.
Well, and I don't think
people definitely, especially when the defenders are all the annoying people, like Marcus Smart. Patrick Beverly. It's like all these annoying personalities that are good defenders. And I think it's because it takes like a little bit mentally more effort than playing good offense.
Yeah, and like with them, just like most of the defenders are just they're not. They never seem to be good people. Like as you said, Marcus Smart and
And
Patrick
Draymond
Beverly and
Green,
Draymond
it's like
Green
all these irritating personalities
and
who
Matisse
talk their
Thybulle as well.
yeah, all of them just talk
Yeah,
their game on the court, and it's like, bro, it's annoying. And I now like I see why NBA players respect it a little bit less, but I still think they should. Because I don't think Rudy Gobert did as much as people act like he did. Like people make it seem like Rudy Gobert caused, you know what? He didn't.
yeah. They also was they were also criticizing Ben Simmons, be like
That's the other
calling
one.
him Rudy Gobert. They're like, Ben Simmons is looking less like LeBron James and more like Rudy Gobert, and it's like Rudy
That's
Gobert
a
is
he's also
fine.
not.
Yeah,
He's also not looking like Rudy Gobert because Ben
yeah,
Simmons can defend on the perimeter. But
yeah. That's that's just
that's
such a
about all I
horrible
say.
take in general. But I mean, yeah, I
We
guess I'll just talk
forgot
about. We forgot
forgot to
something?
cover. Yeah, we forgot to cover the Mavs Warriors game one.
Oh, yes, we can. Yeah, we can do that, and then I'm gonna talk about Danny Green, since he's now one of my favorite players. Not even just because he's on the 76ers and he tore his ACL, but I'll talk about him after. So
Right,
for the Warriors and Magic game, or Magic
Maverick.
Mavericks, um, I it was on the Warriors' home court. I'm not too surprised with the outcome.
Yeah, me neither. Game
Um,
always starts when the home team loses or the away team wins, right?
yeah,
And what happened was a little bit shocking. Luca kind of got clamped last night.
yeah,
I did not expect Andrew Wiggins to do as good of a job as he did. I was very specific that Andrew Wiggins was a slightly above average defender, and tonight he was better than slightly above average.
yeah,
Um, but the player I was much more impressed with than Andrew Wiggins was Kevon Looney.
yes. He
It
played.
was really weird, right? So Kevon Looney is like 6'9", 6'11" ish, right around there, I believe. It's weird because he's slow-footed, similar to the way Luca is slow-footed, right? So when you see Luca like drive to the basket, he like puts his head down and he like does the hard dribble. That wasn't working with Kevon Looney.
Yeah,
Couldn't body Kevon Looney. He's not a mismatch for Luca, which is
yep,
which is insane because you look at Kevon Looney and you're like, I can't guard future top 10 player in the NBA, like in all time.
yeah,
But he did that game. Now, granted, none of the perimeter scorers were scoring all game until the third quarter. The first half, I believe there were 6 or 7 total made threes, and the majority of them came at the end of the second quarter.
yep,
Like when you're the Mavs, you rely so heavily on perimeter scoring, and you need to take that ball to the hoop. But Luca cannot get past Kevon Looney or Andrew Wiggins, and Spencer Dinwiddie is getting there, but then he's getting swarmed. There's just not much you can do. People overreact to game ones, but at the end of the day, what happened is the Mavericks could not shoot. The Warriors are the Warriors, so they will always be able to shoot. So this game, this has to be a fluke for the Mavs, otherwise they're done in this series.
well, and I saw a stat. They attempted 48 3-point shots, and 44 of those were wide open or just open in general, and they made 11 of them. And I don't, as much as that's a horrible stat, I always say this after a terrible shooting night from a team, there's no way that they do that again I guess unless you're the 76ers now.
Only the
but
Sixers could be that bad.
but
You're right.
you know, and I said this at the beginning, even though I took the Mavs in 7, and I still hold to that.
You should, because nothing has happened.
Yeah,
The Warriors didn't go up 3-0.
yeah,
It's not the end of the series. It doesn't look good
and
for the Mavs.
I said that you're only gonna get 1 to 2 games out of Brunson and Dinwiddie. 1 to 2
We haven't
games
had
that they're,
either.
yeah, and they haven't had either yet. I think once I don't I don't know if Wiggins will be able to do that to Luka once again. If
See,
Luka,
it's actually an interesting stat. I believe Wiggins is much better on his home court. It's like he's
yeah,
not him and Jordan Poole and Tyler Hero. It's like these very odd players that are like astronomically
well,
better
yeah, role
on their
player
home court.
role players are always better when they're on their home court just because of
But
the
it's
support they get.
but it's like astronomically better.
Yeah,
Like they are like I believe it's like a 4 point per game difference. It's insane for
yeah,
Wiggins. I'm interested to see this next game what adjustments Jason Kidd made. Because last game, Steve Kerr threw like a million different coverages at Luka. He was throwing drop, he was throwing double teams, he was throwing big man on him. Like it was really different. Last time the Suns, they threw one thing at him, and if it didn't work, I guess we lose this game.
yeah,
Jason Kidd needs to make adjustments when they go back to their home court. Otherwise, it doesn't look good for the Mavs. But Steve Kerr is just an all-time great head coach. He has like the
yes,
highest playoff win percentage of all time of any head coach. It's it's incredible.
yeah, and he's one of the few successes of being a good role player or just a good player in the NBA in general, and then moving to coaching and also doing well there. Um, so congrats to Steve
Willie
Kerr.
Green is the other one.
Yes, and I think even though it's just 1-0, I I I picked the Mavs in 7. I can definitely see now the Warriors back in the finals, and I think
Which
it.
I don't want. I
I
don't want it.
personally I don't want either. I think this is the last run for them. Um,
I think it's the last run, really. You don't think Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga and all that can step up in the future? Like you don't,
I don't think
because
so. I don't think that they're to the level like Steph Curry is one of the like guys of this era. It's Steph Curry, LeBron James, Harden, Dame. He's one of those guys like during this
do you
era.
think do
And
you think Jordan Poole can take over the Steph Curry role? Yes or no?
he can take over the Steph Curry role, but not how Steph Curry does it.
Okay, so he's a slightly worse Steph Curry. Do you think Wiggins can take over the Klay Thompson role?
Mm,
He's like the two-way 3-and-D type guy.
I
Not in the same way, right?
no, not in the same way.
Do you think Kevin Looney and Kuminga, one of them, can take over the Draymond role?
Uh, Looney's more likely to, but I don't see that
Okay, so then
happening.
Moses Moody just has to be a solid role player because I don't see him like. So I maybe you're right, but the longer these older guys linger around,
The
the
more it
more like
hurts them.
the more no, not the more it hurts them. The more I'm confident they can continue playoff success. Because if you only have to give James Wiseman like 10, 15 minutes
Yeah,
when he gets back and he uses those, or if you only have to give Kuminga like 10, 15 minutes and he does really well in those minutes, then it's like I know what this team is. Once these guys step back and retire, these next guys are going to be able to step up and they're going to be well rested. They're going to have fresh legs because they're going to have been taking it easy. Not easy, but like they're going to have been playing their role in the offense for so long and they know what all the roles are. Steve Kerr has designed a very elaborate offense and it takes a few years to even learn it, which is why Jordan Poole is only breaking out now
yeah.
as opposed to doing really well in his rookie year despite always being a really good shooter.
It reminds me of Bruce Arians. He has so many plays in the
Yes.
NFL that it takes forever for a quarterback to like study and start being well at them. And they normally have a dip in production year one, and then they get back to normal or better year two under Arians. But yeah, I see that as a comparison. And so we're about 50 minutes. I'm just going to talk for like 2 to 3 minutes, maybe a little bit more about Danny Green and what he's said. You know, it was so unfortunate. I was watching that game when Embiid fell down. He did not flop onto Danny Green's knee. I don't care what people say. When you have a 7 foot, how much does Embiid weigh? Like that has to be
like
quite a bit.
270.
And
it's a lot.
Falls. Like when he falls, it's forceful, and like he's on the ground more than he should be. But to see that happen, especially at the guy later in his career, and he says he's going to be back for the All-Star break. Markelle Fultz, he injured his knee. What was it, in January? It was January.
Jonathan Isaac injured it in the bubble, and he's still not back.
And he's still not back. And it took Markelle Fultz over a year to do that. And you're telling me that a 34, almost 35-year-old Danny Green is going to be able to come back in less than a year? I don't.
And be good. And be like getting get rotation minutes. I think he's going to be more of a locker room guy now than more than he is a good player.
Even if he can come back.
I believe his contract is up, so it's likely he's only going to get the veteran minimum.
Well, so he has one more year. He has a team option of 1 year, $10 million. Which
they're not going to accept that. They're not going to accept that.
Which is so much, but
that means you're essentially paying him $20 million if you think he's going to get back by the All-Star break.
Yeah, I don't.
Because like paying him for half the year, that's not. I wouldn't accept that if I'm them. Is there a world where Danny Green doesn't get an offer to a single team?
Yes. I think at his age,
like 36 now.
I think he's turning 35 soon, coming off an ACL. Like everybody, not hyperbole, was genuinely thinking this could be the end of Danny Green's career. And some people are still thinking that, even though he's saying he's coming.
Even though he says he wants to come back, like it could still be the end, because by the time he comes back, he's 35, and then it's like, oh well, even if we're not talking injury, we can project like maybe a season and a half more at age 35 of Danny Green being Danny Green, and then it's like, okay, you're a locker room guy. Yeah. So with this injury, I see him going down to that locker room guy role a lot faster than people think. So could he skip town and go to like a championship contender with a deep bench? Could we see Danny Green in a Warriors jersey next? Could we see him in a Heat jersey next year? Like those are the type of places where I feel like when players regress to a certain degree or get injured, they try and go to those types of teams. The Heat picked up Oladipo, and we've seen how well he's played, especially in that first game. Like it.
And people are calling him washed and above, or not even above average, just average. And he's not. I'll just say he's not Indiana Oladipo, but he was exceptional in the 76ers series. Really good.
And he was really solid in the first game against the Celtics. So we will see what happens with Danny Green. I, for one, hope he stays with the Sixers. Yeah. Continues to mentor like the Isaiah Joes of the world, the Matisse Thybulles of the world, and that is if they keep the same roster. Now, I hope they decline his player option or team option, because 10 mil is way too much for a guy who's only going to play half the year and is 36. We don't know what it'll look like. Yeah. But I hope he gets offered another contract. It would suck if this is how Danny Green goes out. You know what I mean? Like, Danny Green is someone who has been in the playoffs like every year of his career.
He's top 10 in
playoff threes. Yes.
Yeah, he was breaking records during this playoffs, and I was watching that live, and
It would
he,
suck if he's gone.
yeah, and he was just one of the guys that you would root for. I mean, the
He went from like a meme on that Lakers team, right? Like
yeah,
when he missed that wide open three to win the game one against the Heat. Um, People memed on him,
yeah,
and I was always like, okay, Danny Green's a really good role player. Having one down year or like off season is not enough to like write him off as a player. But as a leader and a locker room guy, after being in that Spurs culture, he deserves a contract, even if it's like last man on the Magic,
yeah,
even as last man. Like he'd better get an offer. Otherwise, I'd be shocked.
yeah. I I wouldn't be surprised if the 76ers pick up his team
I would.
option,
I would.
just because they're most likely shipping out Tobias Harris, and I think that they would be good in terms of cap with that. With that being the case, um, but it's 10 million. That's gonna be just for a locker room guy, which seems foolish, but at the same time, you can't
Well, I,
risk
for
Danny
one,
Green leaving.
have my team paying $5 million for
Yes,
Garrett
Garrett
Temple,
Temple.
and I am very frustrated with that contract. So I think you would be mad if your team paid um, Danny Green that 10 million, and then your team goes out there and once again can't shoot.
Yeah,
So I think you say that because you like Danny Green as a person, but when you watch the team for the first half of next year and you see can't make anything, you're gonna be like, dang.
I think that losing him is gonna hurt more
The
than
locker room.
is gonna hurt the locker room. I don't even if he comes back and he's half of what Danny Green used to be, I think losing him even as a locker room presence is gonna be
I think you can risk it. I think you can risk it and bring him back for like 8 mil less or 7 mil less.
if he takes it, that would be amazing. He hasn't made any indications on whether or not he'd take something like that, but I guess we'll have to
I
see.
don't I don't think anyone's gonna offer him 10 mil is my
No.
point, but that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah.
You're good to
Um,
outro.
yeah. So, yeah, I think that's it. That's that's all that we have to talk about today. Once again, we hope you consider subscribing, and we want to thank you for watching this episode. We're going to be having
Leave constructive criticism.
yes, yes, absolutely. We're going to be having why am I blanking on this? We're going to have more NFL content coming out soon as the NBA
As well as
season comes to
draft
a close,
prospects.
as well as NBA draft prospects in the coming days. So make sure to subscribe for if you don't want to miss out on those. But other than that, once again, we hope you consider subscribing, and thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Goodbye.